It's 55 degrees right now. It feels much warmer. Slight breeze from the south. Here it is, Christmas Eve. Now, on the day of the recording, this is Christmas Eve. Of course, it's going to be a couple days after Christmas for you. It's a beautiful day. It's supposed to get up into the 70s today. Last night, we did not run the wood stove. We used the Mr. Heater Portable Buddy. I've showed you that a few times. It's just a little space heater that you can use for camping trips. It uses propane. Probably ran it for an hour last night before I went to bed. Got up this morning, ran it for another hour. Got up this morning, it was 68 degrees in the house. It was probably in the high 40s outside. It's just a really beautiful Christmas day. It's like Christmas in Australia, maybe. I don't know. Just doing my regular chores today. Today I tried to stack some wood up here today. Get ready for January. So what I'm doing is I bring wood from the main wood pile and I set it over here just to get it out of the moisture area. You know, they're out there, it rains and I got tarps on it. So I feel like if I put it over here for a few days, it dries out a little better. Don't know. But I split each piece of wood here one final time before I bring it over to test the moisture in it. Make sure it's 20% or less. A lot of walnut in this group. You can see the walnut right here. Just beautiful wood. And walnut dries pretty quick. The oak, there's still some oak in there that is above the 20%, even though it's been there a year and a half. So I spent about an hour, got that stacked up. That probably will get us through January. Now recognize I still got another pile probably that size inside the tiny house. Yeah, believe it or not, there's still room in there to put firewood, a good size stack of firewood. I'm really happy with how little firewood we are using. I thought that we would use a cord of wood per year, but I don't think we'll use any of it. So what I did basically to get that is I took it from here. This is where that walnut was. I want to get the walnut out of there. That's what you see on the porch, is that little V shape right there. That should get us through January. Now imagine I'll probably use another amount like that for February. I mean, we're not talking even a truckload of firewood here that will be used for January, February. It takes 3 truckloads to make a cord. I probably haven't even used that much so far this year. So I'm expecting the winter to get much worse. That's why I think that we'll use more in the second half of the year, winter, than we did on the first half of the winter. Regardless, this house just doesn't use a lot of firewood. And I can heat it with a little portable buddy, Mr. Heater Portable Buddy, with a 20-pound propane tank. And that 20-pound propane tank, the last one we used, you know, we just did it on days like this where it was just kind of a little chilly in there, but didn't need the firewood. I'd rather not use it at all, but firewood just makes it way too hot. It's a waste of firewood to just open the windows when you're running the firewood to kind of keep it cooler. I sure do like the tiny house, which is kind of the topic I want to talk about today. Is the tiny house. I haven't really talked about it much since I built it, but now I've lived in it almost a year. So January we moved in it last year. I asked Carolyn today, does she like the tiny house? Carolyn's pretty honest about how she feels about things. I don't think that in general she dislikes the tiny house. I think she's fine with it. She would like to have more storage areas. So for example, we used our well house to store food, and it's worked out really well. In that bin there, in the bucket, and on the shelves, you'll see all our food stores. But the problem is the canned food is inside the house because we don't want it to freeze. So as you know, I have been working on a root cellar, and my holdup is I'm trying to find an old used freezer. I just can't find one. I got most of the digging done. I just got to get a freezer. Once we have that, then all the canned food can go in there. Then she'll have enough storage, shelves, enough shelving to put whatever she wants. But I don't know what she needs. I mean, she seems to be doing just fine now, but that was her complaint, was she wanted to get the canned foods out of the house. Now we did talk about putting it up in the attic, but the attic needs quite a bit more work before we get things up there. We got to get ventilation going through there, so in the wintertime when it's cold, I can blow ventilation. It just needs more work. And if we can put it out here, that way also it's easier to get to the canned food. We wouldn't have to climb up into the attic every day we can just come out, open up that freezer, and get our food. So that's the biggest thing about the tiny house. So this is kind of like the pros and cons of a tiny house compared to a house. I personally have found nothing wrong with the tiny house. It has everything we need in it, everything. It's very comfortable to me. I've really enjoyed it. And I see myself in it when I'm 80, and I still think I'm gonna enjoy it. We were talking about the wood heat. Or am I really gonna wanna get down on the floor, put wood heat in? Well, if I have to, we can get a pellet stove. Of course, that takes electricity. She found one the other day that doesn't take electricity. So, you know, there's options available to us in the future if we need to change things around a little bit. But we got so much firewood, I'm not entirely sure that I'm gonna have to get any more for the rest of my life here. I might just fill up the gaps that I got for a few years. You know, let's say I use up a truckload this year. I'll go out and get a truckload and replace what I got. And that's it. I don't think I'm going to add to what we already have. Just replace what we got. I could probably just skip it for 2 or 3 years and then go out and get some more just to fill, like I said, what we've used. I'm really happy with the little amount of, I mean, think about that. Think about that. I never had to pay for another heating bill for the rest of my life. My heating bill is taken care of. I don't have to buy firewood. I don't have to buy gas. I don't have to do anything. That's it right there. You know, I light the stove twice a day and it does fine. The other aspect of it, it was how inexpensive it was to build. It cost us $5,000. I built it myself. Now, I don't have any skills to build anything. I mean, I'm not even saying in this video that you should go and attempt it. I mean, I would recommend that you try. I was really proud of myself for doing it. But if you just feel like you can't do it, I understand, but you can pick up those little Home Depot sheds. They're not built near as strong as this, obviously, but you can get one of those for $2,000 to $5,000, depending on the size you want. This is 200 square feet. It's actually just under, it's like 196 square feet. So it would meet the requirements, easily meet the requirements of the code enforcement. But if you got one of those sheds and you were able to park it in your area, obviously Missouri would allow you to do that, Tennessee, whatever states, but they'll allow you to do it. So you got a $5,000, let's say, shed. Well, it's going to take a little bit of work to get it where you can live in. You got to put insulation in it. Now, I use 2x6s in this, so I can put thicker insulation in. Those little sheds have 2x4s. So you might have to either do without the insulation, but I'm telling you, as easy as this is to heat, I don't know if you need 2x6s. I'm glad I did it, but I don't know if you need it. Now, here's the big thing, is the money. I could have worked the rest of my life. Bought a home, paid a mortgage. I mean, I paid a mortgage for 10 years. And what did we do? We ended up moving. The house was worth less. The house was worth less than when we bought it. You know, it was that recession. The housing market had crashed. So we didn't make any money off of it when we sold it or got rid of it. Why do it? Well, I tell you why you do it. Because a bunch of bankers got around, because a bunch of bankers got together, I think in the 20s. And they're like, man, we got to figure out how to make some more money. Banks make money off loans. What they do is I put money in the bank in my savings account. They use my money to loan it to somebody else. Then they collect a fee off that money, interest. They give me a little bit, they keep the rest. It's a real racket. I mean, think about it. It's like some sort of Ponzi scheme if you really think about it. It's terrible. Using somebody else's money to give it to somebody else so they can make the money. Wow, what did I do out of that? Well, nothing. It's a ridiculous scheme. So they got around and said, okay, what are we gonna do? Businesses are the only people that really get loans, you know, business loan. And that's such risky loan. If business fails, they may not pay. So they got together and said, okay, well, we got to come up with a fancy name so people buy houses, because houses we can resell. If they default on the house, we can take their house and resell it. It's a win-win. We got all that money from the interest that they paid into, then they lost the house, and then we get the house. What a deal. So they called it the American Dream. and they started advertising the American dream. 2-bedroom home, you know, picket fence, and it was just wonderful. Well, they started out with homes that people could afford, small homes. Back then, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's just use a hypothetical number. Let's say a home had 100 square feet per person. That was the average home size, 100 square feet per person. So basically, our house, 200 square feet, 2 people, 100 square foot. Let's just call it that. Well, nowadays, the average square foot of a home per person is like 400 square feet. So as time went on, these bankers got clever. Hey, we can just sell them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger houses, making more money. And of course, they can't afford the house, so eventually they're going to default on it, and then we get the house and sell it again. I mean, it's a great racket. And it's the American dream. And then they tell you it's an investment, that you're investing in your home. Now they're convincing you that it's a money maker. You're going to make money off this house. It's going to go up in price. Until it doesn't, like our house, until it crashes. The housing market is just as vulnerable as any other market. Well, then I go and do something where I keep all my money. I don't give it to anybody. I was just talking yesterday to Carolyn and how we could afford something that we couldn't afford years ago and just pay cash for it. I don't want to talk about my savings account, give you too much information, but years ago we would have had to have gotten a loan. Now we don't have to buy this thing. It's just a wonderful feeling because we don't have credit cards, mortgage rates. The downside of living in a tiny house is minuscule to the upside. So if I can inspire you to find your happiness when you live your dream. Thanks for watching.